Hi, I'm Stacey.
And I'm Rox.
And we are the Sofa Detectives. Welcome back, Sofa Sleuths. Today we're going to be talking about the murder of Cassie Jo Stoddart.
And I have wine.
I also have one.
Excellent. Now we've got wine. Cheers.
This is one of our Halloween videos. So the Cassie Jo Stoddart murder was like a Scream-inspired murder.
Yeah.
It was very similar, wasn't
Yeah.
it, in the way that it was, I don't know,
Planned out.
Like
Yeah.
it was planned out from the beginning. So Cassie Jo was a 16-year-old A-class student? That's not the right word.
That sounds hilarious. I like that. A-class. Class A student. No, that's worse.
Okay, we don't know, but she was a great
amazing.
student.
Yeah.
Loved by everyone. She lived with her brother and her grandmother, didn't
Yeah.
she? And she was trying to earn a little bit of extra money throughout the summer to buy her own car.
It was a car, wasn't it, that
Yeah.
she wanted to buy, yeah.
So, you know, normal teenage stuff in America. And her uncle and aunt had a nice big house just outside the town, was it? Because it was a little bit out from where she lived.
Yeah, it was slightly remote.
So she was to stay there and look after the pets, feed them overnight. No, over 2 nights, I think it was over the weekend, while her family were away. And she asked her family if she could have her boyfriend Matt.
Matt.
Come over and hang out. And because she was a good girl, they trusted her, which is great.
Yeah.
No parties. But Matt went on to invite Tori and Brian to the house to watch some movies.
Who are both male. Tori sounds like
Victoria,
Tori,
yes.
But they were both boys.
Tori the boy and Brian
the boy.
Sorry, I shouldn't laugh.
It's
funny.
all cleared up.
Both boys. Which really annoyed Cassie because she just thought she was going to hang out with her boyfriend, watch some movies, you know.
And that was that.
Yeah. So after a little while, the boys decided it was pretty boring.
Yeah.
The 2 boys, not the boyfriend.
They were watching films and they were like, oh, well, we're going to go because we're just going to go to the cinema or something.
I know, they're like,
Yeah.
watching movies is boring, we're going to go to the movies.
And like, anyway.
Yes.
Pointless.
So apparently they left, and then shortly after, the lights and all the electrics cut out, which would obviously scare the crap out of me.
It would me as well. It wasn't all of them, was it? It was like selected ones that
I think
that
at
went
first
out.
it was
Yeah.
all of them, and then they put half
of it back
on.
on. That was it. Yeah. And at that point, I'd be like, I'm out. Like, let's get all the
Yeah, I would
animals
leave.
and leave.
Yeah, I would. So once some of the lights come back on, they're like, oh, it's not too bad. But because, they're 16-year-olds, they didn't think we should go look for the fuse box
No.
or like investigate, because obviously they were probably pretty scared, and I wouldn't blame them because
And they're out in sort of the middle of nowhere as well.
I would
when
be
this is
crapping
happening.
myself.
Yeah,
I would.
I would.
So they decided to stay on the sofa and just hang out. And then Matt rang his mother to ask if he could stay with Cassie because, you know, weird things were happening and he was worried, so he wanted to stay with
Yeah.
her. So what a great kid. But his mum was like, you know, you're 16, I don't think that's a great idea. I'm
Yeah.
going to still pick you up at, I think it was like 11 or 11:30 that he was due to go. So then when his mother arrived, he was like, please, like, I really want to stay. And he explained to his mother at that point, I
About
think,
the
what had
electrics and
happened
everything,
and that he was worried about leaving her on her own. So the mother was like, I'm not comfortable with you staying, but Cassie can come home with us. You know?
And why
Let's bring
didn't
her.
she? Oh, it's so
I so
frustrating.
wish she went.
Like, it's so, but because she was such a responsible person and her family had left her in charge of the cats and the dogs while they were away, she was so like trustworthy and diligent that she just didn't want to leave. She was like, no, they have trusted me to do
Yeah,
this,
she was
so
adamant
it's
she was gonna
my
stay.
responsibility that I have to stay. But I'm like, just bring all the animals.
I know, I'd have been like, right, we're bringing the dogs, we're
Yeah.
bringing the cats, let's just lock all the doors and leave.
Yes.
Like, how brave is she to want to stay in that house after those weird things were happening?
I think she probably just never in a million years would
Knew
have
it was
thought,
gonna happen.
yeah, the possibilities of what was actually going to happen would ever unfold. Ugh.
It's awful. So 2 days later, after Matt leaving, I thought I was going to say the wrong name then, but it was Matt. When Matt left, 2 days later, the aunt, uncle and cousin arrive home, and Cassie's cousin, unfortunately, is the one that found her stabbed to death in the living room. And obviously that's horrifying, having to walk into your cousin
I often think
on the
about
floor.
this in terms of like the people that discover people in these horrible situations, and like how that has the capacity to completely ruin your life and
It
totally
did for
derail
her.
you. Yeah. And you think like that's just PTSD right there, isn't it? Like you're just, every time you shut your eyes, that's what you're gonna see. And
Yeah, she really struggled. We'll go on to that after maybe the rest of the story.
Rundown.
The rundown. So obviously police were called and there was an investigation. The whole family couldn't live there because obviously the whole house was a crime scene. They thought, obviously because Matt was the last person to see her, that he would be the first person they would question.
Yeah.
When questioned, apparently he showed no emotion, like at all. He wasn't upset. They said he didn't appear to be in shock, but I'm guessing the reason he didn't show emotion is because he was in complete shock.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you think that? Like, I wouldn't think he'd be like, oh well. Obviously, he would be devastated because he cared loads about her. You could just tell by the way he was trying to, keep her safe before he left. So he was obviously in complete shock, bless him. And he went on to explain that there had been other boys there that night who had left shortly before he had. And that they had gone to the movies. Yeah, and then he explained obviously about the lights. He also told them, I think, that the dog was sat staring at the door to the cellar.
Always trust the dog.
And at the time,
that is the first rule of life.
Yeah, at the time he didn't
think much of it.
But obviously, in hindsight,
trust the dog.
Yeah, they should have maybe checked out the cellar. I don't know. Checking out the cellar might have also been really dangerous.
Yeah.
For both of them.
I don't know. You just think
it makes me feel
just
physically
left.
ill.
Yeah, it's so upsetting.
Like, bless her soul. So obviously they went on to investigate Tori and Brian and question them, and they said they had been at the cinema and they had like little cinema stubs for the film Holes. Have you seen that? Anyway,
I have actually.
So they said they'd been there.
How she got killed.
Oh, I said stabbed, but yeah, I didn't say
that she'd been stabbed. Like, was it
like
more than 30 times?
Odd, yeah, 32, 33. Like it was more than 30 times. So it was pretty brutal. Like it was really brutal.
Yeah.
The boys said they'd been at the cinema and they had ticket stubs. And they had like a whole little neat alibi.
But it wasn't
that neat. But it wasn't that neat for that long. The police went to the cinema and they spoke to the little girl, that's rude. The woman, she was 16 I'm guessing as well, because she went to school with the others, who was in, like the little booth.
The kiosk.
Yeah. And asked if, she knew who Tori and Brian. I almost called him Corey.
Tori and Corey.
That would be weird, but if she knew them, and she said, well, yeah, I go to school with them, and they said, oh, were they here? I was going to say Friday night. Yeah, I guess, Friday, were they here Friday night, or whatever night it was? And she was like, no, I would definitely know, like, I would have noticed them, definitely weren't here. So they're like,
Exactly.
Something's happening.
Something's happening.
Something's wrong with me. Don't let me drink wine and tell stories.
So when the police questioned, they didn't they say they were questioning them about the
movie
film, and it was like, oh, can you just tell us a little bit about what the film was like? And they were like, oh, well, I don't remember anything. I just remember it being boring. Like, and they kept pressing
really
them
weird. I can't
to
remember
tell them a
which
little
one
bit
of it
about.
Was it Tori that kept saying that? And he was like,
I'm pretty sure.
Oh, I don't remember anyone. They're like, oh, who's in the movie? Like, who started? And he's like, I don't remember any names.
He didn't remember anything about the film.
And they're like,
how much he was pressed.
The weird thing was, both him and Brian would brag because they both wanted to be movie makers.
Buffs,
they were movie buffs, so they were a bit like, and they know nothing about the film they saw a couple of days ago. Like, something ain't right.
Yeah.
Like, so they kept pressing them. I think they brought Matt in for polygraph.
Yeah. And
they were saying to him, did you have anything to do with Cassie's murder? And asked him obviously all those kind of questions, and he completely passed. Obviously, it wasn't him. He left with his mum. Like, his mum saw her, so it definitely wasn't him. So he was completely cleared. And they went on, obviously, to check DNA and all that sort of stuff. And I think they found Brian's DNA under Cassie's nails.
Yeah. Oh, it's so horrifying.
But no DNA of Tori's on her. And then they brought Brian back in for questioning, and before they could say anything to him, he started crying.
Yeah.
And they're like,
okay,
cracked, basically. Like, now he's going to give us what we need. And he went on to tell them everything. He blamed Tori and said that it was all Tori, and that he was just there basically. Brian was just there. Oh, my phone just fell in my drink. Shouldn't have left it on my lap. Yeah, he blamed it all on Brian, didn't he? And he said that he was there, but he didn't do anything. He thought they were making their own, like, movie.
No, Brian blamed it on Tori, you mean?
What did I say?
The other way around.
Well, they both do it. As I said,
They did it.
They both did it. Brian blamed Tori. They did, didn't they? Yeah. Brian blamed Tori and said Tori planned it all and, killed her, basically. Yeah. And that he was only there. And then when they spoke to Tori said the opposite. Basically, he said that it was all Brian and he just stood there, did nothing. Brian, basically, but also...
That's bad as well.
It's also
don't stand there and do nothing.
Yeah, it's seriously
someone's
bad.
killing someone, or just stand there and do nothing.
Yeah, so it's just...
So that is not a defence, you dickhead.
It's complete... Yeah. I'm not going to say that out loud. So Brian said, I'll take you to where... Because what they said was after they obviously had killed poor Cassie, everything they used was put in a bag and they went and buried it.
Yeah.
So he took them to the bag, and... Which was stupid, obviously, on his part, because... If he wanted to get away with it,
don't take them to
the bag that has video camera tapes of you planning to kill Cassie.
About everything you're gonna do.
Yeah, so they videoed all the premeditation, all the planning, all that stuff before, and then they, thank God, didn't record the killing, but they recorded straight after leaving the house. Yeah, and it's just harrowing. Like, that poor girl went through hell, and they were both saying, the videos, it was just us making a movie, it wasn't real. Yeah. But then if it's not real, how did she actually end up dead? Yeah. So one was saying that the other one egged the other one on, basically. So they were like, we were just making a movie, it wasn't going to be real, and we just wanted to scare them. We wanted to scare Cassie and Matt, and then after Matt left, we thought, we might as well just mess with Cassie, basically. Yeah. And each one was saying that when they went up, because they kept waiting for her to come down so they could scare her in their scary masks, that after a while they got fed up and was like, we should just go up there and scare her. And then apparently Tori was saying, no, I really need to go up there and I need to kill her, and was all G'd up.
Because on the film of them planning everything, it was like, I'm sorry Tori, because that is a girl's name, I'm sorry Cassie, you have to be the one. Like, they were saying that she's a lovely person, everyone loved her, she was really, really well loved and well liked by everyone.
They even say she's our friend.
To be the one. She has
she's
to
too
be
perfect
to die. Yeah, and it's like,
does she
really?
Yeah, I've seen this, I keep going to say CCTV, but it's like I guess it's like a vlog or like home recording.
It was a vlog, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's like a murder vlog. Ugh. I don't like that.
So I do not enjoy murder vlogs.
No, I mean, my face. That's the thumbnail of my horrified face. So yeah, they were at school. You see them sat at a desk and they're talking about.
So brazen.
It's just so weird.
I think that when people have specific interests, people sort of get desensitized to seeing and hearing people talking about and like filming about stuff like that, and they just sort of think to themselves, that's just their hobby.
Because they knew they were strange.
They don't think anything of it.
And they knew they made movies.
Weird, yeah. So I think that after a while, people zone out and they don't necessarily listen to what is being said.
Yeah, because if someone heard, obviously someone would do something.
That does not sound right.
Yeah, so obviously they were both arrested and they were both given life sentences without parole, plus 30 odd years for the premeditation and planning, and like there was a whole list of charges and years that added up to many, many years, which is obviously great because they can't hurt anybody else. But Tori still, from what I can gather to this day, still doesn't admit fault.
He just denies everything, doesn't
he? Because there's another documentary, I'll try and link it below if I can find it, that I watched, and it was about, I think it's called Lost for Life, and it's like a reporter talking to kids that have gone away for life, for murder or whatever it is they've done, and they speak to both Brian and Tori as well as other children that are, or like adolescents that are in prison for murder and horrific crimes. And Brian is tearful and sorry and takes on...
He has remorse.
Yeah, you can see that he has remorse. Well, I say that, but like I don't actually know him, and I wasn't actually there.
But visibly, he's trying to show.
Yeah, and he says he takes on full responsibility, and he understands that he ruined, you know, took a life and has ruined his own life and
multiple other lives,
ruined her family's lives, and took full responsibility. Whereas Tori still hasn't. In the interview, he's there with his parents, isn't he?
I remember seeing the parents afterwards, and they are in complete denial. They are in complete denial.
But the police took his computers and stuff, and he had child porn, and animal cruelty videos.
This is
and
not a good person.
So, if I was to kind of lean on one hypothesis, I think Tori was maybe the mastermind.
I 100% think
and I think
he was. And that's why Brian is actually emotional about it.
He should never have gone along with it.
It's not a good plan.
No, he should never have been like, this is a great plan. He should have been like, my friend needs a little bit of help.
Yeah.
And he should have told someone. But I don't know how it got that far.
I wonder, that's basically the whole story.
I think so, yeah.
So, the discussion. I do wonder how in friendships like that, what is the moment where it kind of all changes and there's like
that
a
always
legitimate left turn into Crazy Town, where the maybe the true evil one, I mean it's both pretty evil, but
yeah, I'm saying they're both pretty bad.
The true evil one has always perhaps had this desire to do this, and that they just wanted to maybe have someone along with them. And I wonder if maybe they test people out and kind of test their loyalties to not just
what they kind of
see how weak they are. Because you have to be pretty freaking malleable to, like, you know, because if you were like, oh, let's kill someone, I'd be like, no, hon.
But fuck off.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry, swearing.
So yeah, I'm so interested in that kind of dynamic within that.
Yeah, like the psychology behind it, like how it happens. I always think
where's the breaking point that comes? If all you ever do is talk about killing people and making films about killing people, but you don't do that, and then one day after months or years of you do it. I wonder what that, moment.
Do you know? I wonder if they were geeing each other on, like both of them. Maybe Brian didn't really think they were going to do it. Maybe Tori didn't really think he would go ahead with it. Maybe he really wanted to, and they were like bouncing off of each other and like getting each other amped up in the car. So in the footage, you can see that they're on the way there. They're getting themselves amped up, and I think it was Tori that goes on to say that he's horny thinking about killing her, which is a horrifying thought.
But it's words like that indicate that he
very immature.
Yeah, one, really immature. Two, he had every plan, like he knew what he was going to do and he was going to plan to do it. And three, that it was his real base instinct and desire to do that. Like I think he was the driving force.
I think you're right, to be honest. I don't think Brian should have gone along with it, but I do think it was instigated by the more troubled one.
Yeah.
Because I think I don't know, like classmates or witnesses went on to say that he was quite obsessed with, one of the school shooters.
Yeah.
I can't remember which one it was now.
Yeah.
And he would talk about this person a lot and was like, oh, he was bullied at school and he got his revenge and I want to be like that, and he wanted to be a serial killer himself. Like he would be like, oh, and would brag about it and stuff, and people just thought he was
That's
a bit
one of
strange.
those classic base area moments of get better idols, isn't it?
Yes. She covered this case and she's the one that got us onto the case.
Yeah.
And
we are obsessed with her.
We are obsessed with her. Not in a creepy...
Not in a killy way.
We also live in a different country, so she is safe.
From our love.
From our love. Our weird love. But she is obviously amazing. And that's how I got onto... I fell down... I say this in every video. I fell down the rabbit hole.
You live in a rabbit hole. That's the thing.
Stop calling me Alice. Alice? Who the fuck is that? Anyway.
You is Alice.
And then I watched obviously the Lost for Life, and then I also watched the footage that they recorded. I wouldn't recommend it. Like, there's nothing gory in it or anything, but it's just a bit much. Like, you can see these two 16-year-old boys sat planning to kill their friend. They even say in the video,
funny
don't they?
How, like, you see footage like that within this crime and within a lot of other crimes where there's like not so much planning, but sometimes you'll see CCTV of people toing and froing and like coming and going to places, and you know, like just before then or just after then, like they just killed someone. And like it's the weirdest thing in the world, because you think we talk about the like true crime stuff, but in some ways it's still really hard to actually get your mind around the fact that someone did kill someone. It's so weird.
Yeah, sometimes it feels like a story and it doesn't feel
it's more
real.
abstract, isn't it?
But when there's footage
you're
of
like,
it, you're like...
I mean, it's premeditation at its absolute worst.
Yeah, it really is. They say in the video, don't they, sorry Cassie's family, but she has to be the one. She has to be perfect.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's just horrifying.
It's insane. And I feel, obviously, you know, you just feel horrendous for everyone that's related to her. But I just do feel like so bad for Matt, because you think to yourself, he didn't want to leave her. He wanted to stay there. I mean, in a way, it's like, well, maybe it's positive that he didn't, because at least he didn't get killed.
Yeah, I was going to say, if he stayed, he would die.
What would have potentially happened.
I think they would have still
But
gone
I think, 100% they still would have
and he would have ended up...
I think that when he left, they were probably like sitting there gleeful, like, oh, this is going to be so much easier.
Yeah,
now that she's not got any backup to keep her safe. But I know people had sort of said, oh, you know, he didn't show any shock or upset, but I think that he was probably just in complete disbelief of what they were saying. But he wanted her to come with him. He wanted her to stay at his, and wanted to keep her safe. And then you're just going to be thinking, because people sort of said about like, oh, well, you know, they didn't speak for 2 days. I'm like, well, they're teenagers. They're not necessarily...
No, he called her a few times, but obviously, like...
That's what people said. They were like, oh, well, why didn't you follow up? I'm like, what do you mean, why didn't you follow up? Like, what's he supposed to do? I don't really understand, like, what's he doing? Like, he's a 16-year-old
2006 as well. Yeah. It's not like...
Like now, like, oh, message her on Facebook, message her on Instagram, message her, you know... It just wasn't like that. And if he didn't have a car and his parents were busy, they're not going to be like, oh, let's drive out to this remote location to check on someone, and you only haven't spoken to them for 48 hours. Your parents are just going to tell you to do one.
Yeah, he probably thought she was busy with her family, or busy, you know, with the dogs, or busy with the dogs. That maybe sounds really weird, but like...
he probably didn't really think a lot of it. And,
because why would you?
Now, I think contextually, it's all about context, isn't it? Like now, people would be like, that's so weird, you didn't speak for 2 days. Like, how the hell did you think that was? No, yeah, but 2006 was, 14 years ago, and... It sounds ridiculous, but life was very different in 2006. Yeah. Like, people would go for much longer periods of time without communicating with each other.
I was 16,
even girlfriends and boyfriends.
Yeah, when I was 16, obviously not then, but like a little bit before then. But I had a boyfriend. We didn't speak every day, or like if I was at my dad's for the weekend, and I like because. Every other weekend, not that you need to know my life story, I'd go to my dad in London, and my boyfriend would, be where I would normally live, and if I'm busy with my dad and stuff, we might have gone all weekend and not spoken to each other. And he wouldn't be like, oh my god, she's dead. Like, yeah,
that is not a normal, like, first
thought. You wouldn't ever imagine that, would you?
I think people were a bit really harsh, like, with Matt about that. Because it's like, well, what he did, what? Like, he was a 16-year-old boy, what is it exactly that people wanted him to do?
I know, he was probably literally devastated. It's probably ruined his entire life.
I'm sure he was. And you think about how, like, this happened in 2006, it's 14 years ago, but people can and do grieve a lifetime. You can't even imagine what it's been like for her family to go through something, and the brutality of it. And then you were saying about her cousin.
Yeah, so her cousin that found her really struggled. She had a really, really tough time with PTSD, depression, anxiety.
Which is so completely understandable.
She really struggled, and she went on to try and commit suicide. Yeah. I don't think she was successful, and I don't know what's happening with her now. But
stuff like that haunts people's lives.
Yeah, it haunted her. Her aunt fell into a deep depression, lost her job. They tried to sell the house year on year on year, and obviously no one would want to buy it because of what had happened there. So that just made the family struggle. They were stuck in a house that happened. Like, it was completely horrific, and they walked into it, and they had to live there because they couldn't sell it. And that's just, it's like reliving that nightmare every day of your life. Yeah. It's just horrifying.
Sounds like a silly concept, but there should really be some sort of government-funded way of
To buy murder houses.
to buy and then destroy murder houses.
Some of them are like.
Was it Dennis Nielsen? His house
was demolished. There's loads of houses that have
people
such a
shouldn't be
horrible history that have been
forced
demolished.
to stay in these homes until they can sell them, if they can ever sell them. There should be some government funded way of rehoming people in that situation, because that's just pure evil to keep people in a scenario like that. Their lives are already ruined. This is not helping them to be able to move forward in any way. They're literally living in the house where the poor cousin is going to be walking into the lounge, and every time she walks into the lounge she's going to be seeing that in her mind's eye.
She'll probably have like a PTSD attack or whatever, like a panic attack brought on by PTSD. Every time she wanted to go into a lounge, probably never really went in there.
Oh, it's so upsetting. Experts sort of talk about not sending children to prison for life, because they say, well, if they were capable of adult impulse control and adult thought processes, then they wouldn't have actually gone through with it, because they would have known, well, I'm going to be in prison forever. And the other reason is that it was so poorly planned. And the murder itself obviously was well executed because they killed her, but the actual aftermath and the getting away with the murder was so ridiculously shoddy that I think what experts are sort of saying is that reasonable adults would not necessarily be better at getting away with murder, but they wouldn't just be like, oh, okay, so I'll go to the cinema and I won't actually watch the film and I'll just get these movie stubs and no one's going to question me about it, no one's going to mind.
Yes.
They don't think things all the way through. However, who gives a shit? Stay in prison.
I was just about to say the same thing. It doesn't matter, but just because they're not good at it means they can't get enough time for it. Just because they were bad at it, that makes no. Does that not make sense?
Yeah.
No sense. Like, just because they can't think it through
doesn't mean everyone else should get murdered because you're an idiot.
Yeah, just because you think you can, you can't. You can't.
And most people, when they're 16, their impulsive things, getting with someone that they shouldn't be with, or smoking behind a bus shelter, or drinking
at the park.
Yeah, drinking at the park. All the stupid shit that people do.
Not going around
stabbing someone 30-something times. That's just on a completely different level, and I think people like that just have to be removed from society because they can't be trusted.
No, or rehabilitated
with being with humans, are they?
There's got to be something wrong with their brain. There's got to be something in there that isn't quite right that you can't fix.
Oh,
sorry, I found that.
It's just
really funny.
A dramatic sigh. It's just so upsetting. Cases like this, to me, are particularly upset. I mean, all the cases we talk about are of course upsetting, but things like this where you're just this was so pointless.
There was no
any reason for any of this to happen, you dickheads.
Yeah, completely.
To sum up, I'm enraged.
Yeah, this one I found really upsetting when we
upsetting.
When we watched documentaries and
it's the
YouTubers
thought of how fearful she would
and
have been that gets me just so upset.
Yeah, I can't even imagine what she felt.
And in the moments when they came into the house and they kind of switched half the lights on and things were going off and things were going on again, and she must have just been so disorientated
and terrified.
And so terrified and so what on earth is actually happening. I just really honestly wish people would listen to dogs more.
Yeah,
not that any of it's her fault, obviously.
No, of course not.
If your
the dog did try to warn them.
Just at least follow up. Whenever Nika, our little puppy, does, I say, we're not actually
our dog.
We're not actually married, when one of my husband's puppy does anything that's slightly out of the ordinary, I'm always okay, what is it?
Yeah, what are you looking at? What are you doing?
Am I going to go out into the garden and find a Ted Bundy out there or something?
I fucking hope not.
Yeah, me too.
That's really aggressive.
But whenever she jumps up all of a sudden and goes to with real direction and real focus to something,
you just want to know what they're
just
doing.
A lunatic.
Yeah.
I'm okay, show me what it is.
I guess because it wasn't either of their dog.
It's not their dog. Yeah.
So they just didn't really think much of it. They thought maybe he does like to sit there and have a little look over there,
Have a
Sorry,
little look
that
over
sounded
there.
really, it wasn't supposed to be funny, obviously, but like...
It goes without saying, but we're going to say it anyway. Every time we laugh at something, of course, it's not that we're not taking this seriously, it's just that we are idiots. There you go.
And also, if we don't laugh, we'll probably cry. It's
Yeah.
a pretty horrible case. We don't really like, we say this, we don't really like covering cases where children are
Children are
killed.
involved, yeah.
And obviously she was still a child, still a baby, and killed by 2 other babies. Like,
Yeah.
it's just horrifying.
I think that's probably why I think because Tori is so adamant that he wasn't involved, coupled with the fact that obviously like that's their kid, I think that it's that has kept them so deeply in denial, where Brian has obviously admitted that he was part of it and it happened and they were and they did
yeah,
it.
and he's apparently shown remorse.
I think that probably his family members found it. They're not going to be in denial, are they? They're going to be
No, 'cause he
shocked,
admitted it,
yeah, but they're not gonna. The denial phase will pass, and it'll be like, well, he's openly saying that he did this, you know.
I'm not being funny though. His parents must have seen the footage, right?
Yeah, Tory parents, yeah.
And
How
they
do
must
you keep-
know what the...
It's not much of a leap, is it? They're like, here are hundreds of hours, or how many hours, but like,
Yeah, I don't know, but
whatever,
like,
all these
of them
hours of you
planning
planning the crime, planning various crazy shit that you were
And
going to
then
do,
the video
saying that she had to
afterwards.
die and she had to be the one to die. You're known as these crazy people who like school shootings, and everyone in school is constantly seeing you record this crazy bullshit. They're so desensitized to it, they don't even notice it anymore. But you can't, as his parents, can't make the very small leap to think, oh, maybe I actually did do that.
Yeah, because also the police would have said what they found on his PC to the parents.
Oh,
right?
and also he's a paedophile and he likes to
hurt animals and children.
This is not a good person. I've said it before.
They
Say
he
it again.
should just never be allowed out.
No, I don't think either of them will be.
No,
allowed out,
they've
will
both
they?
appealed and both been denied, which I'm thankful for.
Yeah, I am also thankful for. I think that's all of it, isn't it? Before we
Yes,
just
pretty
descend
heavy.
into complete rage.
Pretty heavy video there.
Upsetting.
Very upsetting heavy video. Do you like my horns?
I very much like them. Do you like mine?
Yours look so much better.
Do they? I think they
Your
look
hair
exactly the
looks
same,
really
don't
nice. No, because your hair looks nice and my hair
they? Oh,
doesn't.
you know, I washed it. Special occasion.
I didn't. I was too busy making
Living your life.
apple turnovers.
We should get the apple turnovers. I'm gonna eat them all.
She's excited.
This is just taking a left turn into us just having a chat. Should we sign off?
We should sign off.
Okay.
I can't remember how. Sorry.
Oh yeah, neither can I.
Oh, I get it. I get it. What the fuck is happening?
Until the next time.
Stay paranoid.